Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And several cards using the Altenew Craft Your Life project kit called Illuminated Scenes. I will walk through the whole kit in the beginning. Also, apologies. I wasn't aware until I started fully editing everything that my crazy scientist hair is just everywhere. Really got in the way. I was in the zone when I was crafting, and then when I was editing, it is what it is. I'm not that much of an editing wizard that I can just remove any of that. So anyway, I'll have links to all the things I used. Just check out the description box directly below the video. I'll have my supply list, links to everything. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps pay the bills, keeps the lights on, enables me to keep bringing out content. And yeah, let's get into making all these cards. So this is the Illuminated Scenes Craft Your Life project kit. And it's got this great big 6x8 stamp set, which I just love. I've talked about this before with a couple other previous Altenew. I think they were both Craft Your Life project kits. Yeah, I think so. I love these sort of furniture images, architectural details, stuff like that. Love it. So there's a stamp set. There's a coordinating die set that die cuts the sentiments and then has these frame dies, and then the embossing folder, which you can use with the frame dies to create, detail on the frames. And then there is a stencil set, and the stencil set's really cool too. It doesn't fill in everything. It creates, hence the illuminated scenes, like where the light is shining onto both of the different stamped scenes. And I love it. I love it. And I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to use the stencils, and I'm also going to watercolor these, because you could do whatever you want. And so I took the two big stamps in the set, and I stamped them on both just Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. And on the cardstock, I just stamped it with Altenew's Obsidian ink. And then I'm also stamping them onto Altenew's cold press watercolor paper. And with the watercolor paper, I'm stamping with the same Obsidian Pigment Ink. I'm going to ink it up and stamp it twice. It's stamped nearly perfectly. Cold press watercolor paper does have a bit of texture to it, not a ton. It depends on the brand. Altenew's, it's got a bit of texture, but I can still get pretty detailed images. I just generally will stamp more than once just to make sure I get all the detail. And then I'm heat embossing them on the watercolor paper with just some Wow Clear Matte Dull embossing powder. They don't have to be heat embossed. And it doesn't have to be like the Clear Matte Dull. It could just be like clear embossing powder too, or whatever. You could emboss these in gold. They'd look gorgeous. I just like the heat embossing because it gives the little raised edges. And we'll get to that when I do the watercoloring. But first, I'm going to do the stenciling. And I love it. I love it. I love layering stencils. I will keep beating that drum. They're fun. My hair. Yeah. I for the most part, I don't really care. My hair is all over the place. I cannot control it unless I wanted to spray an entire bottle of hairspray on my head every day, which I just don't. So my hair is, mad scientist looking most of the time. Is what it is. But it's just annoying when I go to edit things like this and I'm like, ah. Anyway, these stencils are unique in the fact that they don't fill in the entire image. They're creating a specific scene, aka the light shining in this one, shining in through the window, and then in the second one, it's from the light source. And I love that. I love it because I don't have to think. You could do this on your own, even without the stencils and these specific images. You could just create a mask, or just use a ruler and a pencil and just, draw a couple lines and then color in only those same, areas, sky's the limit. But for this first, the ones I stamped just on the Classic Crest cardstock, I used the stencils, and then I used Altenew's fresh dye inks. I did take a photo of all the specific colors I used. This time I didn't follow because in the guide, and Altenew includes this, like with the stamp set thing, that includes the layering guide for the stencils. They do generally always include color suggestions as well. Finished images, how it's meant to look, and then color suggestions with the layering guide, all that sort of thing. And quite often I recommend to people, it's like, do what they suggest. Do that as your like first go, and then branch out, switch up some colors, etc. This time I didn't even follow my own advice, and I grabbed like a bunch of colors that just appealed to me, just to be a little bit different. But it does help, especially like some of the layering stencil sets, some of the different sets are a bit more finicky in a sense, or just they take that first go to figure out like what this little thing is, what that little thing is, etc. This set, it comes together so easily. I sped this up in editing, but less than 0 difficulties. Everything just made sense. You can't really see it on screen, but there's all the etch lines. So I showed it like briefly at the very beginning, but there's all the etch lines. There's numbers because the stencils, the ones for this scene are split up into, there's about three sections on the first stencil and then 2 sections on the second stencil. And that's it. It just all lines up. There's even etch lines so that you make sure you have that, those 2 straight lines for the light. Those are on the stencil as well. So everything just lines up and like, look at it. I don't know why. I love it. Because I would not think of this. My brain is like, you fill in the whole thing. Like you color all of it. That's just what it's supposed to be, So I had fun. And then this one, I didn't even fully, like I knew it was a little stamping area, a little craft area. I didn't even fully appreciate that until I was watercoloring it. And then I picked up on like some of the other little details. Like when I first stamped this, I didn't pick it up until I was stenciling. Then I was like, oh, all those right there. I was like, what? Oh, I was like, oh my goodness, those are the fresh dye ink pads on the little shelf. And then there's a few on the desk. I was like, it's adorable. It's adorable. I love it. So for this one, I did the same colors. I didn't bother like switching up. Obviously, you totally can, customize it, make it look like your little craft space. I am jealous of this craft space. It's very clean. It's very clean. There's not, 15 million things on the desk and on the floor and, yep. If it was supposed to emulate mine, we'd have to throw everything but the kitchen sink and like so much splatter that you can't even really see the finished image. But yeah, it's just, I love it. I love it. This set, I wanted to play with it all day and the next day and then just keep playing with it because, yeah, little scenes like this, I'm here for it. So I just kind of worked my way around. The 2 stencils for this one are kind of separate. The first one's separated into like 4 sections, and then the final one is separated into 3. So it covers, all the little bits. And again, right within that light source, which I just find just unique. For me anyway. And again, I will never give up my big florals. Y'all know I love my large florals and cute critters and all the things. But I am very much enjoying these different like sets and kits and things that are just a step out of that. So once I had finished the stenciling, then I'm getting into the watercoloring. And same thing, I took a photo of my palette. This is the Altenew Petal Palette, and they're 2 watercolors. The 3 at the top, kind of left, are the 3 newest shades that they released, which I actually used in a video almost a month ago. If I remember, I'll put it in the end screen. But yeah, that's what the colors I used for like the couch and whatnot, which that one specifically, I think I like need to zoom in on my own image. Mars Red. Yeah. So I could have watercolored these with those same fresh dye inks that I was using. I've shown that in videos too. whatever floats your boat. I switch between so many different coloring options because that is, I ADHD fully. I get bored really easily. So I like to jump around. And yeah, I did a review of this little palette. Goodness, however many months ago. It's on my channel. Any non-porous surface will work. This palette is very nice. It's very beautiful. It's got the little gold edging on it. Love it. So I sped up my watercolor. I didn't do anything crazy. With this, my brain, I filled in everything. I thought about it briefly. I was like, oh, I could kind of emulate how the stencils are, draw a little pencil line or use some post-it tape or masking paper to mask off the other areas and only paint, the light source and whatnot. But I just didn't want to. Didn't want to. Again, we can all do whatever we want. That's the kind of the beauty of this hobby. So this was fun. I really enjoyed painting this in, and that again, this is something where you could just take it to so many different levels. You could stamp this onto pattern paper and paper piece, like the pillows and that that blanket, with pattern paper. Oh, same with the couch, all of it. I need more hours in the day, y'all. I really do need more hours in the day. But it's still, I had a lot of fun. I did just very simple watercoloring. Wasn't too precious with any of it. The only thing I went back and I added a second layer to just the couch. Because, when I got to this point, I was like, it was looking a little washed out. So I was like, I'll just paint on another layer. And that's what I did. And then I was happy with it. And it was good to go. So worked my way around, filled it all in. And I've got a cloth off to the side that I would just wipe my brush on between colors or if I had too much water. My jar of water is also off to the side. I try to keep it away from my elbows so I don't knock it over. And then repeat on this scene. It's also heat embossed onto the cold press watercolor paper. These panels of the watercolor paper are 5x7, just to give you an idea of the size of these stamps. The panels I stamped and stenciled were A2 size, so 4¼ by 5½ inches. So these would definitely work on larger cards. I just didn't cut down the watercolor panels. I cut them down after I was done everything and used all the same colors, just kind of mixed up things a little bit just to, give it all a different look. And it was when I was painting this that I started picking up on more things, like on the bottom little shelf. There's a little die cut machine. Why is it when things are tiny, even in a stamp form, why is it when they're tiny, they're super cute? I have Altenew's little mini Blossom die cut machine. I love it. But yeah, I was like, oh my goodness, it's sitting on the shelf. It's so cute. So yeah, just worked my way through, and the entire time, specifically with this image, I was like, man, I wish my space was just clean, but I would have to have just a separate room then, to keep all the stuff in. And even then, it wouldn't stay clean. I am a disaster. I sent an image of the floor right, where my feet are in my desk to someone. Yep. And I was just like, ignore it. I know I need to vacuum. It's just a filthy mess. But, really, is it ever pristine? You gotta make a mess. Anyway, I'm getting into the weeds. I kept working my way around. I'm using Altenew's watercolor brushes as well for all of this. And again, not doing anything crazy, just filling in. That's basically quite often all I'm doing with watercolor. I'm not, glazing or layering or doing anything difficult or that would take a ton of practice. But always remember too, I have been I'm comfortable with watercolor. I'm nowhere near expert, anything like that. But I have been doing it for a lot of years, so I'm comfortable with it. Because that's the biggest thing. It's just the time and practice makes you more comfortable with it. And it's way less intimidating. It was very intimidating the concept of watercolor when I first started, first started dipping my toes in it. And then the more I did it over the years, it literally has become one of my favorite ways of coloring images. But again, I like all the things. I like doing all the things. I like using markers. I like watercolor. I love the layering stencils. For me, it just depends on my mood and what I want to do. So once I was done coloring in these two panels, I cut both of them down to A2 size, so 4¼ by 5½ inches, because that's just what I personally prefer. 99% of the cards I make are A2 sized. Every once in a while, I'll do something different. And then I pulled out, is anyone surprised, the Woodgrain press plate. And I will link in the end screen to my BETTERPRESS playlist. I have a bunch of videos using these, and this one I've used a lot. I love this Woodgrain. I love it. I love it. It works for everything. So I have it in my BETTERPRESS. I have some Lagoon cardstock that I just stuck to the clear plate with a bit of tape runner. And then I'm inking up the plate with the Lagoon fresh dye ink. You can use any inks with the BETTERPRESS. They have their own inks. I honestly, most of the time now, I use Altenew's fresh dye inks with BETTERPRESS. Pretty much any ink will work though. And so I inked up the plate, and then I put the clear plate on top, and then I'm going to run this through my Platinum 6 die cut machine, and that's going to press it all together. And when you're using thinner cardstocks like this one, you don't get as much as that impression, that deep feel, and it is more of a feel. You can see it in real life, but you can still sort of see it. It's impossible to show on a video. But when you use thicker cardstocks like watercolor paper or the BETTERPRESS watercolor paper, etc., you get that really deep impression as well. But honestly, I love it with just regular cardstock because you just can't beat it. So I repeated the process with some Desert Storm cardstock, and I used the Rocky Shore fresh dye ink. Exact same process. I just put down a little bit of tape runner on the clear plate, pressed the cardstock to it, inked up the plate, running it through, and then I've got that cardstock with that wood grain impression on it, and it's so good. I really do. I love it. I love my BETTERPRESS. So have that, and then I ran that through with the frame wafer die, and with the Desert Storm cards like this one, I just die cut it. I didn't do anything else to it. With this one, the Lagoon one, I'm going to run this through with the embossing folder as well. And I die cut first, and then I'm going to put it in the embossing folder. You could technically emboss and then die cut. It would flatten out the embossing, so you would probably have to do it a second time. Like if you embossed, then die cut, and then run it through again, like butted it into place, if that makes sense. That's how I used to always do it, when embossing folders and coordinating dies were first sort of becoming a thing. Again, it just depends on my mood. Neither way is wrong. But this time I die cut first. I put the die cut frames into the folder and then just used a low tack tape to hold them in place. And then ran that through my die cut machine, which with Altenew's folders and my Empress, I could have used it in the Platinum 6 too, but this is just muscle memory for me at this point. So with my Empress machine and Altenew's folders, the sandwich that works for me is just one cutting plate and the magnet plate. You could also add the shim, the metal shim, if you felt like you needed it. I rarely do, so that's what works for me. So it embossed those frames, which, again, a little difficult to see on camera because of the wood grain, but it's there. And I didn't think about this until I started editing. I could have enhanced the embossing with like metallic inks, just lightly rubbing them onto the raised surface. That would have looked really cool. Didn't think of that till now though. So instead, I just took that same Lagoon ink and the blending brush and just blended it around the edges. This will dry back quite a bit because it's the same color ink on the same color cardstock, but it gives it just a little bit, a little something. If I'd wanted more depth, I would have gone with like a darker shade of ink, but this was fine. So my frames are done. I've got my card bases, all A2 cards. So I've got 2 landscape, 2 portrait, and they're 4¼ by 5½. And I'm going to stamp those same images onto the insides of the cards. One will get stamped with Mountain Mist fresh dye ink, so it's the lightest aqua that I'd used for the blending. And then I clean off the stamp, and I'm going to stamp with Sand Dunes, which is just a really, really pale brown. It's lighter than the Rocky Shore color that I used on the ink blending as well as on the Woodgrain. So stamp that, and then I did the same thing with the other stamp on the other card bases. Stamped it on the inside. And then I also stamped sentiments from the set using the Obsidian ink, and I'll show that when I show the insides of the cards at the end of the video. So once the insides were stamped, I adhered the panels to the card fronts, which with the ones I used the stencils, I could have stamped that image directly onto the card base. Could have just stamped it and stenciled it and then just added the frame. Would have saved me a step. But I didn't have a fully finished plan in mind when I started. So, is what it is. But I adhered it, and then I used Altenew's Instant Dimension foam tape on the back of the frame. And I rarely do this, but with the larger frames, I put some liquid glue on the foam tape just to give me those extra seconds of wiggle room so that I could line this up, since it needed to line up with the perimeter of the card. Because usually I don't like adding liquid glue to the back of my foam tape. I just get annoyed by it. However, when I'm not feeling confident about getting things lined up the first time, because once it's down, that foam tape is not, and the cardstock is not going anywhere. So added that little bit of liquid glue, shimmied it into place, and then we're good. And then I repeated on all the other cards. Adhered the card fronts, popped up the frames with the foam tape. We're good to go. So then I decided to add some splatter, and I pulled out my metallic watercolor palette, and I think I was using, is this copper? I think that's the copper shade. I don't even know where my palette went right now. Honestly, oh, there it is. It's behind me. Yes, copper. It kind of went with the fire brick color that I used for the ink blending and the Mars Red watercolor palette. So I was like, I'll just play with that. So added some water to it, worked it up really well, and then just put it on a little acrylic block. And then I'm splattering it with my Altenew watercolor brush. Could have used my fan brush like I normally use. I've gotten bored again and playing around with different brushes to splatter with. Again, welcome to my headspace, y'all. So since I'm working on the finished cards and the card bases are white, I have, all my scrap paper that I keep with my splat box, and I was flipping it over, and then I grabbed another piece. This was just to prevent me from getting any smears of the watercolor on the back of the actual cards. But honestly, that happens quite often. I'll go to send a card out and I realize that I've got, smears, fingerprints. They're handmade. So added my bits of splatter, and then I had stamped more sentiments from the set onto just scraps of white cardstock, die cut them with the coordinating wafer dies, and then I die cut more scraps with the same wafer dies, stacked them together with the liquid glue just to give them a little extra something, and then adhered them to the cards. And then my final little embellishment is I pulled out some, is it Citrine? Yes, Citrine Gem Sparkles. Because again, those colors went with everything. And these are self-adhesive. So I just had to peel them off their little backing sheet with the Perfect Picker and press them into place. So that'll add a little extra bling to all of these. And worked my way through, got them adhered. Once these were adhered into place, these cards were complete. So the ones with the Lagoon shade of frames are the ones that I use the layering stencils and the fresh dye inks with. And like I said, I really love those stencils. And you could do this, honestly, even with stencils that do a full image. You could just mask off. My brain does not think that way. So I like when, people are designing these sets and coordinating things and all of it. I like how their brains work a lot. It makes it easier for me. So, and then these ones are the ones that I did my little bit of watercoloring with. And yeah, these were a lot of fun. So, as always, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, putting up with my crazy mad scientist hair and all my rambling. And I very much appreciate it. Thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton. It does let those robot overlords know you like what you see. And I appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!